might wake up one day and realize that you just put all this energy into something you don't really care about, that you could feel comfortable and make other people comfortable in a situation. Hello, baddies. Welcome back to Too Smart for This. How are the girls doing? It's a good question. I mean, today is Thursday. I am going to be on my way to LA, moving cities, moving across the country, like 3,000 miles. So I'm sure I'm stressed. So check in on me on the gram, okay? Because I'm sure I am. Anyway, welcome back to another solo episode of Too Smart for This. As you know, you can listen to this on Apple or Spotify, or you can also be watching the episode on YouTube. So go check it out in all the different places. I'm publishing a ton of moving content on YouTube, hopefully right by now. So you're gonna love that. Make sure you subscribe. And don't forget to leave a review for the podcast. I am doing a weekly giveaway. So every week, if you leave a review and you write something out, something sweet, which we love to see, you will be entered to win a giveaway, either a PR package or an Amazon gift card. So make sure to leave a review, like, subscribe, do all of that. It helps me out so much. That all being said, this month's theme, which we touched on in the last episode, is embracing being multifaceted. And so if you don't know who I am, my name's Alexis, I'm 23. I have a lot of different interests, okay? If you're into astrology, I am a Sagittarius stellium. If you're into human design, I am a manifesting generator. So I like to have my hands in lots of different pots all at once. And that for me was something that was really hard to embrace about myself, okay? I would try to put myself into these boxes and be exceptionally good at one thing in order to feel like I was successful, but the truth of the matter is, the way I operate is being able to express my different personality traits through different outlets. That's sort of how I got to this point of being like, what's the word for this? Multifaceted. This has helped me feel way more like a human being and way less like a crazy perfectionist. I think our 20s are really about untangling these beliefs we picked up as children about how we have to act in order to be accepted in society. As Black women and as women, especially, we are conditioned to believe we need to fit in certain boxes in order to survive. And this is not in vain. This is a reasonable thing, because when you're a woman, if you don't show up a certain way, if you don't act a certain way, you don't get the same opportunities and you don't get the same exposure and you don't get the same safety as other people do if you don't present in a certain way. So it makes sense that we have these limiting beliefs that we have to be one type of thing in order to be successful. Like, that's normal, 1,000,000,000%, okay, girls? I'm the perfect example, in fact, of doing that. As someone who relied on my success and my ambitions to help me survive. So to get out of the hood, to get out of poverty, to get out of everything I went through as a child, I did have to be exceptional and gifted and present as white in certain situations and get to the place that I'm at now. Like, that was 100% necessary. I'm not saying that there aren't societal norms you have to fit into. What I am saying, though, is that it pays off externally. It pays off externally to go be super ambitious and do these things, or not even to do that, or fit into a box so that a certain group of people or a certain person even see you as what you think is going to make them happy. However, at the same time, you might wake up one day and realize that you just put all this energy into something you don't really care about, that you could feel comfortable and make other people comfortable in a situation. The way I realized that I didn't really know myself, that I was just running around, buzzing around, trying to make people accept me, think I'm interesting, whatever, is that I recognized that I was over-justifying myself in lots of different areas of my life. This was a habit that was sabotaging my personal relationships. It was a habit that was making me really uncomfortable too, and making me bend over backwards for things that I didn't need to bend over backwards for. And I still struggle with this, but I especially did this in high school and college, where I would over-explain.
Tom's house was broken into and he confronted the burglar and then had to go have eye surgery. Yeah, I'm under a lot of stress.
Why I made a certain decision, down to maybe even why I chose what shirt I was wearing that day, just so that other people would really hear every single reason for me. So, for example, why aren't you continuing consulting interviews, Alexis? I would be like, I'm not continuing consulting interviews because one, I've decided that the consulting industry itself is XYZ. I would have 4 different reasons for why I didn't want to be a consultant listed out, telling Josh and Poli Sci, who we are barely acquaintances and do not know each other, my whole life story just so that I could answer his question. And why did I need to do that? Why? Nobody cares, girl. The real reason is I don't want to be a consultant. That life sucks, period. But guess what? I was over here just over justifying, over explaining. Why was I doing this? One, because I didn't want to lose respect from that person. I wanted that person to understand where I was coming from so that they wouldn't judge me, so that they could respect me and still think I was perfect, hot, beautiful, smart, and amazing, right? I didn't want to lose their respect. And the thing is, that's because I didn't have respect for my own decision in the first place. So this over-justifying was a symptom of imposter syndrome and of insecurity and honestly of just needing to survive in a world where I didn't feel like I was fitting in. And instead of being confident in my decision and being like, oh, I just don't want to do it anymore, which is what I would have said now, I felt like I had to make up an entire secondary life story in order to feel comfortable with these people. And let's also just say, I don't even know if it was really imposter syndrome because I've always been like confident in my abilities. It's more that I felt like I wouldn't have a community and that I wouldn't have respect, which did bring me a sense of security, you know? It's sort of like, it's not so much as like, oh, I'm not confident in my decision because I was really happy to be going to Google and be going into marketing. I mean, I had a great career ahead of me, but I just didn't want other people to judge me. And I think a lot of women feel that way. What I know now is that in all of these situations, if people are judging you for making a certain decision, it's often not really judgment, it's often projection of their own insecurities. So people say this a lot. People really do say this a lot. Like, oh, you're just projecting insecurities onto these other people. But in reality, you want to know what I think about it. I didn't really believe that like, oh, it has nothing to do with you, it has everything to do with them until I became an influencer and started getting hateful DMs and stuff. Because I think about this myself. When I don't like someone or I don't like content that I see, I just keep scrolling, you know? Like I move on, I'm like, oh, I hate this, I don't like this. Maybe I'll talk about it with my friends in a group chat if we like all follow that person and all didn't get like what they were doing, right? But what I realized when people would start DMing me, like in the example of last week of like, oh, like you're so out of touch or whatever, that was their own insecurities and their own frustrations and they're projecting it onto me. So that's what I was doing growing up with over justifying was like, oh, like you need to know everything so that I feel secure. They didn't really need to know everything. They weren't judging me for my decision at all because everyone makes their own decisions and as long as you're happy with them, that's what matters. So I just want to put that out there because I didn't fully embrace this concept for a long time. How did I actually figure out that I was over justifying? Well, it was reflected back to me, which a lot of your negative actions to things in the world will be reflected back to you, and that shit hurts. That shit is painful. I do not like it. I do not like being told I'm not perfect, but a lot of times you have to just accept it, and once you accept you did something wrong, or not even wrong, but you're doing something that's hurting you, you can change and move on, and that's the best part of life, period, honey. My boyfriend realized that when I canceled on people, I would make up elaborate excuses. So once, for example, I was going to let a coworker stay in my apartment during Memorial Day weekend, and Jeff and I were going to go on vacation that weekend. But it turns out that it was going to rain that weekend, so we decided to stay here and not waste our vacation going to a nice place on a weekend it was going to rain. While I was telling this coworker they couldn't stay at my place, I was like, yeah, my hotel flooded and now we can't go to this hotel. Like, I made up this elaborate excuse. Like, it was giving Erica Jane, okay? And my boyfriend was like, girl, you can just tell him it's no longer available. It's not that deep, you know? This was my first inkling that I might be doing too much, was that, whoa, like you don't need to over-explain just because you're canceling on people. You also don't need to over-explain when you like are doing something exciting, you know? And so what I realized is that what would really be letting people down is when I wasn't doing something that I was happy doing. That's the real letdown to me, to everyone else. I thought that the letdown was changing up on people, canceling plans, not going out with them. That's a temporary letdown. But the long-term letdown of you putting yourself in situations where you're not excited or you're not happy or you're canceling or whatever, that is a letdown to everyone because it makes you less fulfilled person, okay? Period. So that's what I had to recognize myself, is that I didn't have to over justify because my decisions were my decisions. And that's rooted in building my own confidence and seeing my own dreams and aspirations as good enough, you know? Sometimes we don't see our own interests as good enough. Like, for example, I had trouble admitting to myself I wanted to be an influencer because I was like, oh my God, I've spent all this time going to school, getting a degree, working at a top company. I don't want to be an influencer and just do something that anybody could do. And that's a problematic mindset, first of all, because influencer work is very hard, but second of all, because I saw it as superficial. And like, here's the thing, guys, I wanted to be an influencer for a lot, like since I was a kid, you know? Those are things that you are like, oh, I do want to do this. I gave up on that dream 100%, I did, but it came back to me. And so now I've got to remind myself that that desire is not wrong. Your desires aren't wrong. If you have a desire and it's coming to you, you have to accept that and go after it because you deserve to. You have to figure out in that vein what you actually want, what you actually need, which is a whole different thing. And you have to accept that about yourself and start to live in that truth, okay? So what do I actually love and what do I actually care about? I love unstructured time. I love being creative. I love shopping. I love designing beautiful new spaces. Those are all things that I love and care about. Therefore, I'm going to create space for that to happen around me without the judgment of all these other people because who cares? Like, I'm not going to be happy if I'm not doing these things. So I'm going to create spaces for me to be able to do these things, you know? It's not always that hard. What's hard about accepting what you want is not justifying it to other people. Because you want it, that's enough without explanation. So to get started with figuring out who you are, what you want, what you enjoy, whatever, I've linked some journal prompts down below that you can check out and start thinking about. These are journal prompts that helped me a lot. And there's also some affirmations that I use to help myself remind myself that it's okay to want what I want. And it's also okay to just be myself and to say no. And also to say yes, but most importantly, to say no to things that don't serve me or that I don't care about. I find that the key to actually prioritizing yourself and being happy is being able to say no, being able to figure out what you enjoy and actually live in that, and figuring out who you are and being okay with that too. I hope it helps you figure out or be more clear on how to get to know yourself, and there will be a lot more where this came from on 2 Collective on the Instagram, journal prompts and affirmations there every day, as well as on my Instagram and TikTok, etc. These are things I talk about a lot. But I just want to remind you that you might be over justifying and that's okay. The cool thing about life is that you get to recognize when you're doing things that don't serve you and you get to actually change them and make life a lot easier for yourself. So be confident in who you are, practice saying no, and practice not giving excuses because it'll help your life a lot. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget about the reviews and subscription opportunities. I love you so much. And don't forget that you are too smart to not love yourself.